Prepare for one of the most disturbing African tales you will ever hear. This is not a story of heroes. It is a story of choices and the price of power. In Umwaka village, elders used to say that anything that promises protection without effort is already lying. But young men rarely listen to elders. They listen to hunger. They listen to fear. They listen to ambition. This is the story of Ikenna, a boy born into secrets, and the charm that slowly destroyed everything he loved. Ikenna grew up in silence, not because his home was quiet, but because silence was safer. He often stood beside his father at night, watching the firelight dance against mud walls, carved with symbols he was never allowed to touch. His father was feared, not loud, not cruel, just respected in a way that made grown men lower their eyes. Ikenna learned early that power did not need explanations. Ikenna was the first son of Dibia Okoro, a man whose name was never spoken loudly at night. People came to his compound after midnight. Some left relieved. Some left silent. Some never returned. As a child, Ikenna watched his father sit before a shrine made of clay, cowries, and old symbols no one remembered anymore. One night, he asked his father, "Papa, why do people fear you?" His father did not look at him, because fear listens faster than wisdom. From that night, Ikenna learned something important. Power was real, and it lived close to blood. People came after dark. They arrived quietly, carrying offerings wrapped in cloth, fear heavy on their faces. No one knocked loudly. No one asked questions. His father listened more than he spoke. And what he spoke, it was never rushed. Ikenna noticed something then. People who came desperate always left lighter or heavier. Sometimes, Ikenna watched from a distance, half hidden behind walls, peering into conversations meant for adults. He did not understand the words, but he understood the fear. Firelight revealed trembling hands. Whispers carried weight. That was when Ikenna first realized fear could move people faster than love. His mother rarely spoke about his father's work. At night, she sat quietly, listening to distant voices fade into silence. Her fear was not loud. It lived in her eyes. She understood something Ikenna did not yet know. Power always asks for something in return. As Ikenna grew older, mornings became his refuge. He swept the compound near the shrine, careful never to cross invisible boundaries. The village woke slowly. Birds sang. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Yet even in daylight, the compound never felt ordinary. Some homes carry memories that do not sleep. One evening, his father finally spoke. His voice was calm, but firm enough to still the air. Not everything you see is meant to be used. The old Ikenna listened without interrupting. He had learned that questions sometimes invite trouble. His father's eyes held knowledge and regret. Despite the fear surrounding his father's name, their home remained modest. Cracked walls, worn furniture, few possessions. Ikenna studied under dim light, holding on to education as his escape. He did not yet understand that some escapes only lead deeper inside. The admission letter arrived quietly. No drums, no celebration. Ikenna sat alone, reading the words again and again. University, hope mixed with fear. He believed this was the beginning of a new life. He did not know it was only the beginning of temptation. On the morning he left, the village road stretched endlessly ahead. His mother hugged him tightly. His father only said one thing: remember who you are, even when the world tells you otherwise. Ikenna walked away with a small bag and a heavy destiny. Some journeys do not change where you go. They reveal who you become. And this was only the beginning. When Ikenna gained admission into a university in Auka, he thought he was finally free. But the city does not free people. It tests them. He was mocked for his clothes, ignored in class, bullied in hostels, powerless. Every morning, he walked through the campus wearing the same faded clothes. He didn't look dirty. He just looked poor. And in a place where appearance was currency, poverty was an insult. They laughed quietly when he passed. Not loudly, not openly. The kind of laughter meant only for people they believed were beneath them. He pretended not to hear. But shame has a way of speaking louder than ears. Sometimes he felt their eyes on his back. He didn't need to turn around to know they were pointing. He could feel it, like hands pushing him lower and lower into himself. That was when he learned a painful truth. Silence does not protect you from mockery. It only invites more of it. In the classroom, he sat at the back, not because he wanted to, but because nobody ever noticed when he raised his hand. The lecturer spoke, students answered, and he existed somewhere between presence and absence. He was there, but invisible. One day, he stood in front of the class to speak. His voice trembled, not from ignorance, but from fear. Some students whispered. Some laughed softly. The lecturer looked past him, not at him. In that moment, knowledge meant nothing. Confidence meant everything. The hostel was worse. That was where cruelty removed its mask. They didn't hit him. They did something more effective. They mocked his background, hid his belongings, reminded him daily that he didn't belong. And every night, he lay awake wondering how being alive could feel so small. One evening, he returned to find his things scattered on the floor. Nothing stolen, just disrespected. He stood there silently, staring, and something inside him shifted. That was the night bitterness stopped knocking and entered. At night, the campus felt different, louder in the day, quieter in the dark. He sat alone under a streetlight, listening to the sound of his own thoughts. Thoughts that asked dangerous questions. Why do the bold survive and the quiet suffer? That was when he noticed them. Not approaching, just watching. They didn't laugh. They didn't mock him. They looked at him the way hunters look at something wounded. And for the first time, someone saw his pain. They spoke calmly. No threats, no pressure. They listened. They asked questions no one had ever asked him before. Are you tired of being ignored? Do you want protection? And in that moment, he confused understanding for kindness. That night, he stood between two paths, one familiar and painful, the other unknown and powerful. He hesitated because somewhere deep inside, he knew this choice would cost him something. But hunger makes courage. Impatient narration. When he finally followed them into the darkness, no one forced him. He walked willingly, and as the light faded behind him, something else stepped forward, something that promised strength and demanded silence. Long pause. That was the night he stopped being mocked. Ikenna returned home during a short break from school. The village welcomed him quietly. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt different. The compound looked smaller than he remembered, the shrine darker, the silence heavier. His father watched him from a distance, saying nothing. Fathers who know too much rarely rush their words. That night, they sat across from each other. Firelight danced between father and son. Ikenna spoke of school, of difficulty, of loneliness. His father listened without interruption. When Ikenna finished, the old man stared into the flames and said quietly, "The world is not gentle with men who stand alone." Without another word, his father reached into a small leather pouch. He did not rush. He did not hesitate. From the pouch, he brought out a small object, dark, rough to the touch, heavy for its size. The firelight refused to reflect from it. Ikenna felt his chest tighten before the charm even touched him. His father placed the charm gently on the ground between them.
This is not strength.
This is not strength,
It can change to cross or
the
anything.
old
Just
man
make sure
said.
it stands on your neck.
It is
Always with you.
redirection. It can change on its own, could change to cross or any shape, but it is still necklace. He did not explain further. He did not need to. Some knowledge enters the body before the mind understands it. When Ikenna picked up the charm, his hand trembled. Not from fear, but from recognition. It felt familiar, as if it had always been waiting for
This charm's protected our family for generations. Wear it with pride, and may it guide you as it has guided us.
him. His father closed his eyes briefly. That was when Ikenna realized something was ending. "Do not remove it," his father warned. "Do not boast with it. And never ask what it protects you from." Ikenna nodded. Young men often agree quickly. Understanding comes later. That night, Ikenna could not sleep. The charm rested near him, silent, watchful. Outside, the village breathed normally. Inside, something unfamiliar had joined him. Protection, once invited, does not announce its cost. By morning, Ikenna was ready to return to school. His mother hugged him tightly. His father did not. The old man simply said, "Walk carefully." And as Ikenna stepped onto the road back to the city, the charm warmed for the first time. Something had accepted him. The change did not happen immediately. Power never announces itself. For days, after returning to campus, nothing unusual occurred. Until the night, the hostel generator failed. Darkness swallowed the building. Laughter turned sharp. Voices became cruel. 3 boys blocked Ikenna's path near the stairwell. They mocked his clothes again, pushed him lightly. The kind of push meant to provoke fear. Ikenna felt it then, not anger, stillness. The charm pressed warmly against his chest. One of the boys raised his hand to strike him. The light flickered. The boy froze, his face drained of color, as if he had seen something standing behind Ikenna. He stepped back slowly, then another. No one spoke. They did not run. They retreated, without insults, without laughter. Ikenna stood alone in the darkness, breathing steadily. He had not lifted a finger. Yet fear had answered on his behalf. That night, Ikenna understood something dangerous. Respect did not come from kindness. It came from fear. And fear obeyed him now. The same men, under the streetlight, approached him again days later. This time, they smiled differently. "We heard what happened," one said. Ikenna did not deny it. He did not explain. Silence had become his language. The charm did not speak. It did not move, but it had chosen its role. And Ikenna had chosen his path, whether he knew it or not. When Ikenna returned to campus, something about him felt settled, not louder, not aggressive, just certain. The same paths he once walked with his head low now opened before him quietly. People noticed before they understood. His clothes were still simple, his voice still calm, but eyes no longer lingered on him with mockery. Conversation stopped when he passed. Laughter softened. Fear does not always announce itself. Sometimes It simply rearranges behavior. The men under the streetlight welcomed him differently now. No long speeches, no dramatic oaths, just nods, quiet recognition. He was no longer being observed, he was being included. The first task was small, not violent, not loud, a test of loyalty. Ikenna followed instructions without asking questions. He learned quickly that obedience was valued more than courage, and silence more than strength. Word spread across the hostel, not of what he did, but of what happened around him. Conflicts dissolved when he appeared. Arguments ended before they began. He did not threaten. His presence was enough. Inside, Ikenna felt something change. The boy, who once waited to be chosen, was gone. In his place stood someone who expected space and received it. Respect tasted different when it came from fear, but it was still intoxicating. As weeks passed, the tasks became heavier, still quiet, still hidden. He was no longer sent alone. He moved with others now, shadows among shadows. Every successful operation tightened the bond and loosened his conscience. The charm began to feel heavier against his chest, not physically, spiritually. Sometimes it felt warm, other times cold. It never spoke, but it never left him alone. Ikenna stopped asking himself if things were right. He only asked if they were necessary. That was when his father's warning returned to him. Too late. Power had stopped being protection. It had become identity. Students whispered his name carefully. Lecturers noticed his sudden confidence. Some admired him, others avoided him. Ikenna had become something the campus understood instinctively. Someone not to provoke. Loyalty began to demand proof, not in words, and sacrifice. The gang did not threaten him. They didn't need to. Belonging always comes with a price. One night, after a successful operation, Ikenna stood alone under a streetlight. He realized something unsettling. He was no longer afraid of consequences, only of losing power. That was the moment he truly crossed over. Power borrowed from darkness does not ask permission to leave. It waits for the right moment. Ikenna no longer walked through campus as a boy seeking recognition. He walked like someone who belonged, someone who could bend silence to his will. The charm rested against his chest, heavy only in presence, light in purpose. He felt it like a pulse, an invisible shield. It was not magic in the flashy sense. It was protection, yes, but selective. It amplified awareness, instinct, and the subtle fear he could inspire. When he entered a room, the students who might have mocked him before hesitated. The charm made him feel untouchable, but it also demanded caution. Its function was simple yet terrifying. It revealed who would obey instinctively and who might betray him. His first assignment with the gang had been minor: deliver messages, observe certain students. But it had gone perfectly. Those who had laughed at him weeks ago now avoided his gaze. Ikenna realized something crucial. The charm did not act on its own. It required belief. Belief in himself, yes, but also in the authority it gave him. The charm's power was a reflection. Fear returned to the wearer as confidence. Nights became his training ground. He observed others quietly, how they moved, how they whispered, what made them anxious. He tested the charm silently. A glance, a step closer, a pause in the conversation, and the reaction came. It was never overt, never violent, only psychological. And the gang watched, approving. They knew a student who commanded fear without threat was more valuable than one who wielded weapons. One evening, alone, Ikenna held the charm up to the firelight. He traced its surface with his fingers. His father's warnings echoed, "Do not remove it, do not boast, and never ask what it protects you from." Now he understood. The charm did not make him invincible. It amplified perception. It warned of danger. It reflected the fear others felt, and it demanded responsibility. If misused, it would fail. Days later, the gang approached him with a more complex task. A conflict had arisen with a rival faction on campus. His first test had earned their trust. His confidence in the charm made him bold. He knew fear was his weapon, observation his ally, and the charm his guide. And for the first time, he felt truly untouchable. Ikenna moved silently along the dimly lit pathways with the rest of the gang. Every step was deliberate, every glance measured. The tasks were secretive, but not dangerous, at least not yet. The faint glow of the charm against his chest reminded him that he was no longer an outsider. He observed his peers carefully, noting who moved confidently, who hesitated, and who might falter. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, heavier than any backpack he carried. From a distance, Ikenna's eyes followed a group of students who were unaware they were being watched. Subtle movements, nervous shifts, and whispered exchanges told him more than any words could. The charm pulsed, faintly, like a heartbeat only he could sense, confirming the accuracy of his instincts. Loyalty, he realized, was not demanded. It was observed and earned. Under the glow of a single streetlight, the gang gathered. Nods were exchanged. Silent instructions passed without a word. Ikenna stood calmly at the center, the charm faintly glowing against his chest. Shadows stretched along the pathway, stretching their presence over him and the others. The next operation would require more than observation. It would require precision, patience, and control. That evening, back at home, Ikenna's father spoke quietly. The firelight flickered across his worn face, casting dancing shadows over the walls. "Remember," he said, "not every success is proof of safety. Not every fear you inspire protects you." Ikenna felt the charm against his chest. Its weight was familiar, but the warning weighed heavier. Power, his father implied, demanded wisdom, and disobedience carried consequences. Alone in his room, later that night, Ikenna held the charm in his hands, turning it over carefully. Its glow was faint, yet reassuring. He replayed the events of the day, the tests, the observations, the subtle nods of approval from the gang. But deep down, a quiet unease had begun to grow. Each success had its cost. Each fear inspired carried its own weight. And somewhere, he knew the charm's protection could not last forever.